Welcome everyone back to How to Father. Thank you so very much for all the wonderful feedback we got off the second episode there. We had just under 200 downloads, which is pretty awesome. And I just want to thank you guys all for all your support, feedback, and everything like that. Special shout out to my buddy Shay808. He's the one who is going to have the tracks, the mixed tracks here for the podcast, so the beginning to end little music tracks there. Also, there's a local boutique, men's boutique shop here in Albuquerque called Above Snakes. They've been supporting us pretty well, so thank you so very much for that. So again, we're going to jump into it. We have our first of many illustrious guests. We have Ted, make sure I'm saying it right, Farnath?
Farnath.
Ted Farnath here, and welcome to How to Father. We met, how long has it been now?
It's only been, I want to say a year and a half.
A year and a half now, yeah. At the school. So but, tell us about yourself.
Well, we've had a lot of quality time at the park.
Yes, yes, we have.
As dads watching our kids play, we just sit and talk. So it's like, I think that year and a half may extrapolate to about a 6-year relationship at this point.
I feel that. I mean, with the not just the dad stuff, with the sports and everything like that, we have a pretty good little relationship about a lot of different topics, which is pretty cool.
Yep.
So Ted, you're from Jersey originally.
Yeah, I'm from Jersey. I'm the youngest of 5, but they're all half.
Okay.
So 3 half sisters and a half brother. But mainly it was just me and my sister. Grew up in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, just like 20 minutes from Philly. My mom worked in Philly, and then my parents divorced when I was like 2, so my mom lived in Philly, and my sister and I would take the high-speed line over, and so split my time between Jersey and Philly. Just like, I don't know if I said this, like a 20-minute car ride. And I grew up in like a great neighborhood in Jersey. I loved it. Kids everywhere. We played all the time.
Yeah.
After Jersey, I went to school in Colorado, and then I headed out further west to San Francisco because a bunch of friends from Colorado were moving to San Francisco. So we were all like, okay, cool. And like 5 or 6 of us went out there, and then I ended up living there for 18 years, meeting Emily, my wife.
Yes.
Having our first kid, Sammy, there.
Okay.
That's not easy. Having a kid in the city.
No.
It's it's so much easier in suburbia. I mean, I know technically we're in a city, but, you know.
Yeah.
I would have our German Shepherd, and I'd have Sammy strapped to the front of me, and trying to pick up the poop and doing all that. Parking 3 blocks away, walking everything up, going up the 44 stairs. It was a lot. And then when Emily got pregnant with Simon, she's like, it's time for us to bail. It's time for us to get out of this apartment. I didn't want to let that apartment go, man. I had rent control.
Oh, man.
$2,100.
Wow.
It went for $6,000 right after we left. It was a top floor, views everywhere, but it had to be easier than the way we were doing it. It was tough. So then we decided to come to New Mexico. Emily's from here, and I guess the rest is kind of history. Then eventually I met you guys at Montessori de Rio Grande. Great school we go to.
School.
And I think that's about it. I mean, I was a private investigator in San Francisco for 18 years. It was a lot of fun. But then when I was following someone, and it got a little tricky when we were doing about 120, and Sammy was 1.
Oh, geez.
And I was like, you know what? I gotta pivot, man. I can't do this anymore. Yeah. And I love the thrill of the chase, and it's someone that you and I both know who I was following, and I'll tell you later, but I had to pivot. So now I work for the public education department in Santa Fe.
Yeah.
Something much safer.
So tell us about, you said a good thing, 20 minutes difference between splitting with your dad and your mom. Yeah. So your friends group was probably still the same because you guys are still pretty close.
Yeah.
Tell us about that. I know you touched base on the neighborhood. Growing up in Maryland, that was the same thing. We had pretty much the boys had their little group, and then the girls had their group, and then we eventually all kind of met up at a park or something like that. But tell us about that lifestyle growing up as a kid with your friends in your neighborhood, which is very rare these days.
It really does feel, especially like with the street we're on here, it's a bunch of blue hairs, I'm going to say. It's a bunch of white hairs. And, you know, they're great. I love them all. They're retirees. We talk about stuff, but there's no kids to play with. And back then, so my neighborhood growing up was a diamond, and it was awesome. It was, there was a lot of open space. Mm-hmm. Now, you know, they're crowding houses in. They've been doing this for 20 years, 30 years, but they crowd them in like 5 feet apart from each other. Exactly. But we had, in the plans for our development, was a bunch of open space and land easements between streets. So you would have these big open areas and forests, and it was creeks running mm-hmm. through, and we were just like playing all day long. We had forts in the trees, the prickly bushes, you know. Like we had this tunnel through the prickly bushes where you would hide a note halfway through. Someone would, and then whoever got there that day would be like, "Here's our plan today." You know, like we would.
That's awesome.
We would play all sorts of games, and our parents just like let us run around the neighborhood all day long and get on our bikes and ride to other neighborhoods, mm-hmm. which I would be nervous about these days only because of cell phones.
Yeah,
because people space out on their phones, and I was sometimes riding on the side of roads with like a 1 foot shoulder. You know,
exactly.
There's no way I would let my kids do that now. But it was a pretty neighborhood, a really pretty area to grow up. And, you know, growing up in Jersey, I wouldn't have changed it. I loved my friends from there. I'm still in touch with them. They're like brothers to me. Known them my whole life. I was really into sports, big time sports. Yeah. I was a kid that could hit a ball when I was 2. So my dad later told me and my sister that he would show me off to neighbors. Like he'd throw me little wiffle balls and I'd smack them all over the place. And then, that's it. The neighborhood was really like, it was easygoing. It was a really good place.
I get that because our neighborhood, we're on a cul-de-sac and we have one set of kids, but they're older. They're like middle school, high school. So they're not really too inclined to play with two little guys with Camden and Maxton. Yeah. But I remember growing up, we had pretty much very similar in Riverdale Park. There was a lot of greenways. Of course, we're talking green in New Mexico. That's very rare. But you had creeks and rivers and lakes and stuff and forests. So we had a thing called, we had a tree fort that pretty much nailed in just whatever wood planks we could find. We just kind of nailed it up, made our little ladders up there. The girls had their own like kind of fancy little tent setup they had in like a thorn bush. Like you go through the thorns and it opens up. Yeah. But we had in Maryland, I know every state has their own. Like here is the chupacabra, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
In Maryland, we had the billy goat man. Yeah. Did you guys have anything like that in Jersey?
It was a Jersey Devil.
Jersey Devil, yeah, the Jersey Devil. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and in our fort, we had a little pulley system.
Okay.
Just a pulley, and with a bucket, so that, like, last chance, if the fort gets invaded, you pull the rope, and the dirt bombs go flying all over.
That makes sense. Yeah. That makes 100% sense. But yeah, I mean, that was the same way we grew up. It was just, see you later. And it was even like, they just knew we're going to be home at a certain time. Yeah. Or we ended up at a friend's house, and the mom called my mom or whatever the case was to say, they're over for dinner. Is that okay? Or whatever. And usually they're like, perfect. Yeah. And as a parent, you think like, as a kid, like, wow, we're just like over at this person's house, that person's house. But as a parent, you're like, my kids say, hey, we're staying at Billy's house for dinner. I'm like, okay, sounds good. We could watch whatever TV show we want to watch or do something, like have that freedom. At first, I was like, whoa, I guess that's weird. But as a parent now, you're like, that's kind of nice. Like,
yeah. We had 2 kids living across the street from us when we first moved to Albuquerque. And Sammy would walk over to the fence and yell her name over and over. And then she'd pop her head out. And he'd be like, I want to go play over there. I'm like, this is fantastic, you know. But, yeah, then they moved out and no kids around. So I think to find that, you gotta go find like new construction. Mm-hmm. You got to move into a place where the houses are 5 feet apart and everyone's jammed in there with kids everywhere. That's the bonus and the negative of it.
Well, you have the condensed areas. I mean, as a real estate agent, as a realtor here, seeing those neighborhoods, and they're so tight, that means there's more people. And like you said, more people have more cell phones and they're driving to the neighborhood and think, I'm already on auto control when it comes to driving in my neighborhood. I know where to turn, where to position the car, but they're on their phone or something like that. So there's those fears as a parent of your kids riding their bicycle. We had a guy that it got to the point where myself and my neighbor Steve, we were ready to beat this guy up. They were renting a house, couple of houses down, and again, we're on a cul-de-sac, 5 houses in, the cul-de-sac starts. So very short little jaunt there. Mm-hmm. This guy would floor it every time he turned in there. And we're like, dude, there's kids out here. We put like the kids at play, please slow down signs. It got to the point where we finally went there and like, dude, if you don't slow down, it's not going to end well. Like you need to like, if you want to race, he had like a Ford Escape, but it had a turbo. It's like a little SUV. I'm like, dude, like go to the drag strip or go out somewhere, and if you want to drive fast, but don't do it on a little residential street. So, but yeah, that's the that's the issue these days, because really, and a lot of people don't want kids. A lot of the next generation, they're like, well, we don't want kids. So you have all these families which is fine. You just don't have any like, okay, well, who are they going to play with?
Yeah.
And all our friends, look at the Montessori, the Rio Grande, our school. There's a lot of people in the North Valley area, but most people are kind of spread all over the city just because of the charter school nature of it.
That's the thing. Like when I was a kid, we all went to the school in the neighborhood, and then we all went to the middle school just outside that still walked there. And then we all went to the same high school. Like my friends I've known since I was in kindergarten, second grade, third grade, and then others I met in seventh grade when we hit middle school. And I kind of wanted that for my kids. I wanted them to all grow up with the same kids. But, going to a charter school, I know people, we both know people that come from 45 minutes out.
Oh, yeah.
And there's several of them up in the mountains. And so where are they going to go when we hit fifth grade or sixth grade and our school's done? We're all going to go different places.
Exactly.
And it's going to be hard to keep the kids together.
Well, we were just texting about that the other night. Right now, both our kiddos, this past year, were in the same class, the younger ones and the older ones. And Max is leaving kindergarten, headed to first grade, and then Cam is leaving the first or third grade, headed to fourth grade. And so we're like, well, we hope Max gets in the same class with Sammy, so we can at least keep that. But we have no control over that. But of course, we do have control outside of the schooling. But that's still kind of, you don't want to force. I don't think there's never going to be an issue with their friendship, but you don't want to like, oh, you have to play with them. Like, well, I got these new friends because I'm in a new class or whatever the case is. But then I'm freaking out because Cam is in fourth and then fifth, and then that's it. And then it's like,
then life gets real fast.
Life gets real very fast in middle school. I mean, I was at the Isotopes game, and it was a middle school day, and I was like, "Good God, I don't need this right now. I don't need this anytime soon." It was rough. I was like,
I go visit schools. That's part of my job, and I love visiting with the elementary levels, and I love visiting with the high school levels. But
middle school teachers should get a pay bump over everyone else.
I've long said that they should make more. It should be a bell curve. Like middle school is at the top. If you're a middle school teacher, you make more than the rest.
Well, I'm not sure if you heard this or might know because you're part of, I guess, in a sense, in the realm of the education department. There's rumblings of a vacant lot close to MRGC that they want to purchase for a middle school.
I don't know anything about it.
I heard through the grapevine, and I'm trying to remember which. It was a PTA gal.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember which one it was because I don't know if I was dreaming it, but I remember I was at Target or somewhere and I ran into like, oh my gosh, like, well, Cam is going to this grade, so we're just talking. Like, yeah, there's a rumor that they're trying to buy a lot nearby for a middle school. It's like, because China built a hospital in like 2 weeks during COVID. Can we get those guys over here?
Hey, Philly just fixed 95 in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I was really surprised at that.
So, I mean, that's hopefully, fingers crossed.
Hopefully. I did hear something about that at our school, but I don't want to get into the inner workings of the pub, but they're not under my purview. I don't see exactly what they're doing.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So, talking about that, growing up in Philly and everything, and you mentioned your dad showing you off, hitting the wiffle ball and all that fun stuff. Tell me about that experience as, I talked in my last podcast growing up as under a single mom. Of course, I had my uncles and stuff, but that split household, how was that? Even though you were close, did that do anything to your childhood to make it better, worse, or just kind of like this is how it was? Tell me more about that.
So my dad moved to Collingswood. First, my mom moved to Philly. She was in Roxborough in Philly, and my dad took over our house. And then after, 8-9 years, she came back and won custody. And then, because she was an alcoholic, so then she went through it all. She was clean for a long time, and she came back and moved into our house. And then my dad moved to Collingswood. I didn't want to go see my dad a lot. I love my dad. He is a good guy. They were both great people. They just weren't great together.
Yeah.
It was I had a bad childhood in that respect. When the two of them were together, they met on a blind date.
Oh wow.
And they hit it off, but then then they just did not get along. They were like oil and water. And you know, that's something I'm willing to talk about, but I don't know if you want to keep it light. But
no, this podcast is open and raw. We've all gone through stuff, so it's up to you, 100%.
I think having them apart was better.
Okay.
You know, for me, they fought a lot. They screamed. My mom would put me in the closet and lock the door because she was trying to protect me.
Yeah.
Or if the closet was around, it was the bathroom, anywhere. She would lock me in there, and I would hear it going on. And one time I got out, and I got in between them. And I told my dad I was going to, do things to him. And that kind of stunned him.
Yeah.
Because I was like 3 or 4.
Wow.
I was really young. And I said, I'm going to rip your head off, like a little kid thing to say. And he really took a step back. And they just brought out the worst in each other.
Yeah.
But individually, they were great. And later on in life, they got along. And they went on to meet other people. But so having them apart was better for me.
Okay.
And everyone was worried about me. It was like, oh, Teddy, he's seen so much. What's going to happen? And Emily, my wife, will point out to me, she'll be like, this feeling you're having, this reaction is a result of what you went through. Mm-hmm. And I've seen therapists, and every therapist I see, we end up talking the shit, shooting the shit and having a great time, but never getting into the problems.
That's me.
Yeah. So we know it's never fully been addressed, and I've made great friends out of therapists, but we've never gotten into it. So yeah, having them apart was better for me. I saw my dad just be 1 weekend a month maybe, and he wanted more, but I had friends and stuff.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to. He would take me to Phillies games all the time. I love that. And especially as I got older, my mom started making money. My dad was like, I'm going to give you the Caprice. He had a big Caprice Classic.
Oh, those are great cars.
Yeah, he's like, I have a surprise for you for your birthday. I'm going to give you the Caprice when you turn 17. And I was like, oh, mom's getting me a new car. He was so pissed. He was so pissed. We went from money to no money to money to no money. It was a weird thing with us. In that period, we had money, and she bought me a car.
So when it comes to that, and that's probably a fear for a lot of parents. I know there's a lot of guys out there that are either co-parenting now, and of course we don't want to go too deep into the judicial system on how it favors moms over dads in a lot of respects. But the fear of, if I'm co-parenting, I only have a certain amount of time, and then when the kid gets older, they're going to want to hang out with their friends. If it's going to the park, or going to do this, doing that, especially when they get to middle school, high school ages, it's we know even as parents, as a together parent, as a 2-parent household, the kids are going to be like, okay, mom, dad, see you later, because that's how we were. They're going to move on, but to probably have that thought of I only have you for such a small period of time, and then when I have that, I really kind of don't have you because you rather be with your friends, and that's fine because we all grow up and we're all doing our own things. But
it's the natural progression of it.
Exactly.
But it's coming, yeah.
It's coming, yeah.
You and I both talk about how we try to enjoy this time. They're not going to be flipping out over Pokemon cards.
Exactly.
And I mean, I love watching that. They get so excited.
They're so passionate about it. It's and that someone said the best thing about having kids is watching them grow up, but the worst thing about having kids is watching them grow up.
Yeah.
And of course, we could send back the videos of our counters won't be that dirty. I was in the house man, this house, we need to clean it so bad. And it's just toys everywhere. I'm like, the house isn't your toy box.
Right.
You have a designated toy room, a playroom that you're never in because you're everywhere else.
Yeah.
But then there's going to be a moment where we're going to have a spick and span house and be like, well, shoot, I kind of miss stepping on the Lego or something like that.
That's true. Yeah. Also, the last 2 times we've had you guys over, we've cleaned all day. And then you guys have come over, and the kids are just 4 kids. Just
it's a Cat 5 hurricane. The kids come in, and
I'm like, but we just cleaned.
It's funny. It feels like we downsize so much stuff. Okay, we're going to donate this or give away that. And then look at them like, well, why do we have more stuff now? Like, why is there?
Yeah.
And their Pokemon cards are absolutely everywhere.
It's
like
it's a tornado mess of a shit show. Yeah. What happened to us is that a friend of ours dropped off. We were out and about, and she called us and said, "Hey, we just cleaned out our house." They had like a kid, like a teenage boy. We just cleaned out our house, and we have all these toys. Can we drop them off? We're like, "Sure, that's awesome. The kids will love it." And we got home, and there were, I think it was 12 or 13 bags of toys. Like, they did a clean out, like a life clean out. And normally we would have taken those bags and like introduced one every couple months or something. Yeah. But they saw them all there. And they all came into our house, and it's been we lost control at that moment.
It's to the point where my sister just had her first baby, and I kind of wish it was a boy. Yeah. Just because we go like, oh, here you go. Yeah. And yes, we're being the kindness of our heart, but also like, it's your issue now. Like, it's all your stuff. Like, totally. I don't want to deal with that at all.
It is cathartic just to get, it's going to feel so good to get rid of it all, but it's going to be like, we're going to hit a time when that's not fun anymore and they just want to play video games.
Exactly. Yeah. They want to be on their phone and play video games or something like that. And it's like, well, you remember this? Remember this little guy? Remember this little toy? I'm too cool for that, Dad. You're like, well, I was like, when you get older, like us, you're going to start playing with toys again. Like, you're have nostalgia stuff that we were like, oh, I remember these guys.
That's the thing. I have some nostalgia things that they totally ruined because, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I gave them my sound wave, like my that I would have on my desk, because they kept looking. I'm like, fine, have it. The head's gone, the arm's gone, you know. It's all gone.
Yeah, that's the progression of kids and parenting. So we're on that transition there. When you found out you were having Sammy there in San Francisco, what was the mindset? What was that first? Were you shocked? Were you excited? What was that? How was your psyche when it came to learning you're going to be a dad and then becoming a dad for the first time?
I would say it was. I was definitely nervous at first, but it was so far in the distance. I was like, oh, you know, I'll just have those. I'll deal with it when it happens. Like, I wanted to have Sammy, but it's. I was a little scared. I was a little nervous. I couldn't like fully wrap my head around it. It's like when we went on vacation a couple of weeks ago, everyone always says this to me, like, are you so excited to go to, we were going to Hawaii. Are you so excited to go to Hawaii? I'm like, no, I have like 950 things to do before I go. Yeah. Then I got to get on 2 flights, and that's not that fun. But when I get out of the airport and breathe the air, I will be excited.
Yes.
You know? And so that was kind of the way it is with having a baby. I was like, I don't know what to feel. When it happens, I'll know what to feel. I think I'm just depending on myself, trusting myself that I'll know what to do. I've read, I did read a book or two and and thought about it, but I was just like, I trust myself in the moment.
And then I remember that vividly when I found out we were having Camden, and I heard the heartbeats and all this stuff, see the ultrasound, and you're like, I'm super excited, but it wasn't real, it wasn't tangible. It just, like, you couldn't smell it or feel it or touch it. It's like, in theory, that sounds great, and everyone's giving you all the advice, and you're holding babies. We went to, a new parents baby class, and it was bad because we were just laughing the whole, and everyone was like, this is how you hold her hand when she's having a baby. This is how you do this and everything. And I don't want to sound cliche, but when Ruby was in labor with Camden, my fingers kind of got twisted like this, like kind of and I was like, just release once so I could, and I didn't want to be like, can you like loosen your grip, because I gave you, it's like giving a guy a weak handshake, like, no, we got to do that over again.
We got started.
I had that, and while she was pushing the baby out, and it was the worst experience. But I didn't want to be that guy like, I know you're pushing a watermelon out of your vagina, but my fingers are a little twisted up here. Can you calm it down? But yeah, the same thing. I thought I knew what I was doing, but it wasn't real until he was there and it was real, and I was like, well, shoot, my whole life just changed in a great way. But it was, it's interesting because I have some friends who are expecting. We know one. Well, they're expecting the third. Mr. The Porter's there, John and Michaela, and Harley and Jace having a little brother. But it's that whole like excitement of, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I guess I just love this thing. Like, and then you kind of, as a man, you're like, good thing I don't lactate because I don't have to worry about that side of it. I mean, I know how to change diapers and stuff. Like I can figure all that stuff out. But when it comes to like the like feeding, like maybe I could bottle feed, but I don't have to like attach it to my breast. So that's a good thing. So those weird thoughts were going in my head. Like, okay, not to say, oh, Ruby, you're got all the issue. You have the baby because you're doing this. But I remember that vividly of being scared shitless, really, at the end of the day. But then, like, it was kind of easy. Like, in a way of, like, okay, I just got to, like, feed, clean, and, like, love this baby.
Well, yeah, sure. When it's first around, babies aren't a lot of work when they're first around.
Oh, they're great.
They're barely moving. But to go back, those classes, those birthing classes, oh, my God. We had a blast in those. I mean, everyone's laughing because there's some positions you get in. Yeah, everyone's laughing.
This is how we got here in the first place.
Like, oh, we're doing this again. We go for twins. And they're like, oh, when you, I forget what they called it. It's like pre-birth, or I forget the term of it, but there's this time when the contractions start, but there's like a long time until you're going to have the baby. So they're like, oh, during this time, like maybe go for a walk, maybe take a bath, maybe watch a movie or cook dinner. It's so great. And like, that couldn't be further from the truth for us.
Yeah.
When it started, and it was on. And, I mean, the whole thing was over in 8 hours.
Yeah.
Like, from the first, there was no relaxing. There was no anything. And then when we did it, I was up there with Emily the whole time. I was doing the hip thing, pushing on the hips and doing all that. And, like, a taste of it is Sammy was born at 1:20 in the morning because they can never be born during the day.
No.
Like, I've never heard of one that's just like, oh, yeah, I was born at noon. It was great. We had coffee and, like, cocktails in the evening. Like, It was a great day. He was born at 1:20. By the time we got done everything, and it was like 3:45, and they're like, you guys must be exhausted. Like, you need to just take yourselves into this room and relax, go to sleep. We're going to, all this and that. And they came back in and woke us up at 5:30.
Yeah.
Like, we finally fell asleep at 4 after an exhausting day, and at 5:30 they came back in to take blood, to do all the checks and everything. And I was like, all right, well, I guess I'm going to get coffee. And then, like, that was the beginning of not having sleep for 8 years.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not going to change. I remember when Camden first came, and I think he was actually born, like, around noon. So he was,
Of course.
And Max was born, like, 9 o'clock in the morning, like 8 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, but you went all night.
No. Max is that kid will... So Ruby, her water broke probably 6 o'clock that morning, 6:30, 6:45. And she's like, my water broke. It was September 1st. Like, no, we're not due till the 21st. Like, you just peed yourself. Like, I don't know. We're like, sure. Are you? She's like, no, my water broke. So I was like, go time. So I get Camden up. I call my mom. I said, meet us at the hospital to get Camden. We roll in. And there's nothing better than no one on the freeway and you have a person in labor and you put your hazards on and you're just gone.
Dude, I've been dreaming that. We've all been dreaming that.
Oh, it was so great.
Since like a teenager. Like, oh, the night I have the baby, I'm going to doing like 110. They're not going to do anything. They're just going to escort me.
That's what I was hoping. I never use Waze, but I put the Waze app on. Like, I was downloading the Waze app because they show you where the police cars are at. Yeah. And I kind of was like, oh, I'm going to fly by a cop and I want him chasing me. And then when I get into the hospital, I'm like, you can't, like, and he's like, oh, okay. And it's like me and the cops. Like,
no, he'll pull up beside you and you'll just give him the signal, like, and he'll be like, give you the thumbs up
and then
get in front of you and go even faster.
They should make, like the diplomat flags when they should make little, like, baby on the way flags just flapping right there in the front so you can just go and just go. But, so we showed up to UNMH and Ruby was in the triage room. So we were just like, he's getting everything check on the baby. And she's like, I need my room. I'm like, oh, we're getting the room set up. Same thing. Yeah. It's okay, just relax. You're not quite there yet. She's like, I want my room. And she's getting crazy. So then a midwife and a nurse walks in, like, okay, let's go to your room. Nope, there's his head. Start pushing. And we got there. I mean, it was from the water break 2 hours later. And she's like, I want the laughing gas. And I was like, can I have some laughing gas too?
Right.
And they're like, well, it's in the room, but we can't make it to the room. She's like, it's part of my birthing plan. Because she just wanted to do, because she had them both natural, but she felt like the laughing gas wouldn't be too invasive, but she wanted to laugh during it, like just have that
Like
giggles
take
or whatever.
the edge off or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And nope, Max plopped all right out like 8 o'clock in the morning, and there we go. Like, all right, who wants a breakfast sandwich or something like that?
Well, ours was the same way, but I'm going to go back to the driving fast thing because I always dreamed of that. But we had Sammy in San Francisco, and there's a stop sign at every block. Mm-hmm. And so I'd be like, let's go, let's go. We're like in the car and getting ready to go, and I hit a bump. There's potholes everywhere. I hit a bump, and Emily was like, no, like slow down. So I'm doing like 22 to the stop sign, 22 to a stop sign. And we went across the city like 2 miles to UCSF or Kaiser. I forget where we were. And it was the slowest ride. And I was thinking to myself, like, man, I've been dreaming about this my whole life. But, and then also to go back with what you were talking about with having Maxton so quickly, that's what happened with our second, Simon. Emily was like, she had her first like little contraction, and he was born within an hour and a half.
Yeah.
On our bathroom floor. Like, we didn't have time to get there.
Wow.
And she did both of them without any meds.
Yep.
And I'm just like, this is incredible. What I'm winning, especially the first time.
Oh, yes.
Because the first time, a lot of things are stretching, and she's in pain, a ton of pain. And she got to the point where she actually said, like a couple hours in, I think I need the drugs. And luckily her mom was there, and her mom just laughed and said, sweetheart, you're past the hard part. Like, the ring of fire had already.
Yeah, exactly.
And she's like, oh, thank God. And like, then she made it the rest of the way.
I look at when Ruby had Camden, and I was there. Well, for both of them, of course, but with Camden, and it was longer. It was more. There was time because she's very quiet. She's not very vocal, and she was very quiet during the time. And even like the nurse was like, are you really like having a baby? Like, you're the most calm person like that's ready to have a baby. And she did the bouncy ball, and I'm sitting there, and then my mom was there, then her dad was there, and he was like, am I supposed to even be in here? It was kind of that awkward thing. Like, am I supposed to be in here? But
she's like, stay up by my head.
Yeah. She's like, just stay up here type of thing. And then she was able to, when she was doing the pushes, and she probably, like with Max, he just like shot out. He was like, I'm here, hey. At Camden, she probably pushed for about 20 minutes or so.
Yeah.
Max was like 3 pushes, and the dude was here.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there with my fingers, my poor fingers, getting just crumpled to death. And she finally I see her, and I remember it vividly because her foot kind of kicked out, and with that, like a nerve told, like her hand opened up, my hand opened up, and I switched hands real quick, and I had a good grip, and I was like, yes, now I feel like I can help you. Now I'm like, we're in this together. I have my strength and your strength, and my fingers were like twisted and broken, dislocated on the other, my right hand. But when she had him, and I remember like I could hear her voice, like my baby, my baby, my baby. She just kept kissing him on the forehead, kissing him on the head. And I'm sitting there crying like a baby, as always. I mean, everything makes me cry now when it comes to kids. And then like, okay, sounds good, Dad. Hold him for a second. I like took my shirt off, and I was holding him. Like, all right, thank you. And then they're like, we got to do our stuff. And he took him away. I'm like, wait, hold on a second. What's going on here? Like what? And it felt like it was like we didn't like really have Camden until like that night. Like it was like, okay, now he could be in the room. He had a little jaundice, so they were doing some making tests and make sure everything was okay. Yeah. Then he was born in December, so we had to stay just because the flu was a pretty big outbreak at that time or something like that. But it felt like they had him more than we did. Yeah,
they hit a secret button somewhere because there was only the doctor, a couple, and like there were like 3 people there. I don't know who was a doctor, who was a nurse, to be honest. There were like 3 people there, and then all of a sudden I see people walking in, they're gloving up.
Yep.
And they're all like getting ready. They're all just like talking, and I'm like, "What? No one left the room. Someone hit a button like under somewhere because now there's 8 people in here." And I guess like they knew that he had the meconium or whatever that's called. And so when he came out, they rushed him to the next person, the next person, the next person. They were all doing these things to get the poo water out of his lungs, essentially. I think. Yeah.
And then that was the like. Most, because they're like, you're jaundice, and I'm like googling what, like he's gonna be yellow, and I'm like, he's a yellow baby, is this and that, and it was nerve wracking, but then it realized, okay, calm down, and I remember was it my friend Nathan, he said, you got over the hard part, And then I remember looking at all the nurses, and they kind of looked back like, oh, no. No, and they're like, do you have kids? And he was like, oh, no. It's like, no. My sister just had her baby, and the third day of them being home, she said, I was like, how's everything? How's it being home, etc.? Like, let us know when we come by. We want you to settle and get relaxed. We're just trying to find a good routine. I think we're on it. And I just lost it. I was like, the word routine means absolutely nothing for the rest of your life. Rest of your life. Like,
I mean, there will be sort of something when they pick a nap schedule.
Yes.
But yeah.
If they pick a nap.
Right. Right. They'll go with the 3 naps at first, then the 2, then the 1. I feel like we stopped napping them earlier these days than back. Because didn't you say you were taking naps in
first grade?
Yeah.
First grade, we still had a nap time. Kindergarten, first grade, we had little mats.
Yeah.
And had a nap.
Yeah, the 3-year-olds aren't napping.
First grade, I don't know what year it is. Probably 91 for myself. The teacher, I don't know if it was still legal, but she used to still smack us with the rulers on our hands if we didn't. And she was an old lady, black lady. Smack us. I think that was the last time I ever got smacked. So I don't know if it got outlawed in '91. Someone look it up. PG County, Maryland. Phyllis C. Williams was the school. But yeah, we had naps. Camden never napped. As a baby, sure, he's like, oh, I'm a baby, I'm napping. But when he got to a toddler age, it was like all gas, no brakes. That kid never napped. I mean, you had to force him to okay, let's go down, let's go to sleep. Even to this day, never napped. Max, great napper. Camden, not even close.
That's the same thing with Sammy. He never napped. It was really hard. I would take him, hold him, and go back and forth on my feet, doing this exercise thing. And sometimes it would take me 40 minutes, 45 minutes, 50 minutes. I'm sweating. And finally he's falling asleep. And another thing, living in the city, we lived a half block off Market Street. We weren't in half of San Francisco is a suburb, but we were in it. And right on the other side of Market was a firehouse.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah. And they came out 7-8 times a day, first responders.
Yeah.
And I would get him down and get him on the bed, and then that thing would start going off. And no! Or the mailman would come, and our dog would start barking our head off. So many noises. Old creaky apartment.
It's funny, they could sleep through, when they're asleep, they could sleep through most things.
For definitely the first 2 hours.
Yes.
Yeah, they're out.
And then any small little movement. We used to shuffle down the, okay, who's gonna get something to drink? Who's gonna go to the fridge? Don't walk past the room. But then as a parent, you want to be I want to look and check on them. I want to do this. No, they're fine.
Yeah,
they're okay. They're this, they're that. But Camden, he refused to nap. And to this day, this kid, if he could stay up till 10 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night, he would.
Yeah.
And then he will sleep into 10, 20. He's already a teenager. The other day I came home. I had an appointment at 8 o'clock. Come home. It was 10, almost 10, 9:45. And this kid's still sleeping. I'm like, dude, you're 9. You're not even a teenager yet. You can't. You don't have that. What are you doing? You better be 10 feet tall by the end of the summer. The amount of sleep you're getting, you better shoot up like crazy. But
he's got the switch under the covers.
Oh, pretty much.
Playing all night.
Oh, pretty much. And that's what he's doing. And of course, we did that. We had the Game Boy, but we had to have a flashlight because you didn't have the backlit on the original Game Boy.
Yeah.
And then the color, and then you still have to have the little flashlight and all that fun stuff. But yeah, it's funny to look at the parallels of when Camden didn't want to nap at 2, 3, 4, and how Max enjoyed sleep. And Max, he will put himself to sleep. Max is tired. He just goes to his bed and he's out. He's like, good night. See you later. Camden, you have to scratch his back, read him 3 books, put a sleep story on, sing a song. But then, of course, we all know what happens right before bed. So, Dad, today, guess what happened? And wow, then this happened and that happened. We drove 30 minutes to get home. We did this. You had all this ample time to talk to me. But Dad, I'm going to forget. And it's the hardest thing. I was just tell me tomorrow, but I'm going to forget tomorrow. I'm he probably will. Dang it. Okay. Let's bring this story very
wrap
quick.
the day up real quick because I'm curious because I asked you earlier and you had nothing to say. So wrap it up real quick.
Wrap it up. Here we go. But there's my water bottle there. But the thing is, it's funny because Camden is still exactly this ornery sleeping kid. And I talked to a lot of parents that the first child as parents, we're like, we got to do this, we got to do that, we got to do all these things. Our diaper bag is like it's like we're going to Iraq to fight some insurgents with this diaper bag, and then the second kid's like, we got one diaper, half a wipe, and some water bottles. Like, you got some water in there? Okay, let's get some rags and like clean them off. And it's like ragtag, just like, get out in the world, you're fine. And the first kid, because as parents, we're like, we don't know what we're doing. We're trying to let's we need warmers and this and this is the we have to have the right sanitizer, the right this. Okay, before you touch them, let's and we still did that with Max. But when's the last time you were sick? Let's check your temperature there. Make sure you're okay.
Dude, I'm so glad the diaper days are over. You just reminded me. I'm so glad. I'm still wiping butts.
Oh yeah.
Because they're not doing it right. I mean, I like to give them a chance, but I'm like, okay, let me make sure. And it's funny how like I'll catch myself. We'll be eating dinner. For some reason, they love to poop.
Oh yeah.
At dinner. And we'll be eating dinner, like, Dad, I got to poop. They're out of the room, gone. And then I'm still eating out here, like, I'm done. And it doesn't even faze me to get up from my meal, go wipe their butt, come back and finish my dinner.
Well, Ruby got, as a gag gift a couple years ago, a bidet, which I love it. I swear by those things. It's taking a shower after you use the bathroom. Yeah. And so now it got to the point where, like, Dad, I need help. Go sit on the bidet. Spray that bad boy down. Clean yourself off. So they're on Amazon for like, I don't know, $100 if that. A bidet might be a savior. Like it cleans it all up, it just pat dry and you're good to go. So you might be able to enjoy your meal, even though second nature with your kids, you're like, whatever, it's a booger. I'm gonna clean this off and just wipe it on my pants or whatever the case is, because those are your kids and you got to do it that way. But so when it comes to having baby number one, Sammy, to Simon, that transition from one kid to two, how was that? Was it a big jump, a big leap, or was it like, I kind of got a handle of this? I know what I'm doing for the most part. How was that transition for you? Yeah,
I think so. Because a lot of the tough stuff that I went through with Sammy, Sammy was born with a giant head. He still wears the same hat as me. He's 100 percentile. So, they were like, we need to give him an X-ray. This is my little baby boy. Like, we got to put him in this machine and X-ray his head. And I was like, no, we don't need to do that. He doesn't have encephalitis or whatever you're trying. He's fine. And they're like, no, we have to do it. So I put my little precious little baby boy, he was so tiny, into this giant machine. And he's just looking up, with his little googa gaga, and it's just metal and everything above him. And he started to cry. I'm like, do this quick, get this over with. And then I grabbed him and ran out of there. It's just like when they got their first shots, when he got his first shots and he's all sleeping. And then they jab him in his soft little pillowy thighs. And I'm like, get off him, I'm out of here. So by the time Simon came around, we were used to all that stuff. We knew it was coming. It was a little easier in that respect. But also, I've realized that I don't do some of, the magical little things I like to do with Sammy. Like, I've lost a little focus of that. Sammy was big into trains, and every day after he would go to bed at night, I would find something random in the house and put it in his train shed and close the door. And in the morning, he'd wake up all chipper and, go to his playroom, and I'd be there with him. And he'd be playing, and at some point, he'd open that door, and there'd be, a grape in there, or something random. And it made his, minute. He would laugh and laugh and laugh. And, I feel like I've lost touch a little bit with that individuality that I used to have with Sammy, of doing those little things with Simon, just because there's more going on, and I'm not concentrating on one. It's like I get up, and one's hungry, and the other's hungry, and there isn't a time to set up those little things anymore. Exactly.
I feel the same way with Camden. It was, I remember one time I was actually at a listing appointment, and I get a call from Camden's godfather, my best friend Nathan, and he said, first thing, Troy, don't panic. I'm like, you don't say that. You don't say that. So everything's okay. Camden's fine. I'm like, hold on a second. Man. Now I'm elevated.
Right.
And he had a fever-induced seizure because his fever spiked real hard. And Nathan was dropping something off for Ruby and the boy, for Camden. And she went to the bathroom. And of course, when the baby's sleeping, I'm not going to put him down. Camden was like, you put me down. What are you doing? You need to be. And so when she lifted up, he had a seizure. And of course, as a mom, she didn't know what, she's freaking out, she's panicking, she's like, and Nathan showed up right in time to be like the voice and the calm of reason. And of course, and this was another moment of Speed Racer. I was like, pull me over, I don't care. I was flying up Candelaire going like 100, like I didn't care. I was like flying there, and I remember driving behind the ambulance and seeing his little head, just in the gurney, just looking. He was alert, looking around. My heart broke, and then I realized, I got to beat the ambulance there because like I can't like roll in with the ambulance. Yeah. And it was difficult. It was hard. But then when Max was like, he never really had any like incident like that. But when he was hurt, I'm like, your brother went to the hospital. You're fine. Like not like put some dirt on it, but it was we were already, like you said, past the toughness, the tough parts of being a parent. And it's again the same thing. Camden and I, we had like routines with singing, routines with like little instruments and dancing, and then it was like trying to like implement what I did with Camden with Max, and Max was like, what? What is this? And then Camden was like, I'm too cool for it now. Like I'm too cool. Like what do you mean? Like we're not going to sing that song anymore. Then I started slowly kind of doing things with Max, but then I realized, well, then I'm kind of isolating Camden if I'm doing this and that, and sure, like Ruby could do that, but then I had something with. So then I was trying to like implement all three, and then like I don't like that song, or I don't like that, or I'm into this and he's into that. So I get what you're saying on the
it's a tough dance.
Yeah, it's a tough dance. Yeah,
it is. And that was one of the things I learned, because I would usually if I was somewhere and I saw like a little train or something, I'd pick it up for Sammy. And I did that once early on. And I thought Simon was too young to realize what I was doing, And I picked up something for Sammy and I brought it to him, and Simon started pouting and looking at me. I was like, oh no. Like I'm screwed for life now. I got to get them both something every time, which has stopped me from getting them things, because I'm like, no, I don't feel like getting two things. It's two different stores. I don't even like the same things.
And that's a nice-ish thing about Camden and Max. They kind of like the same things, but then for a while, Max was like dinosaurs only. Like I don't care about anything else. And it had to be Jurassic World Park or Jurassic Park. It had to be it couldn't be some like, oh, here's a Stegosaurus. I didn't see that in the movie. Like, what are you talking about? I didn't see this, or I didn't see that. Whatever. Yeah. And so it was always like little things like that truly made like a big difference between, do I buy them something? Because and they're smart too. Can they get a Pokemon set for $10, but a dinosaur was $13? Yeah. So God forbid the toy that one kid likes is a little bit more than the toy the other kid likes, and they know that too. Like, well, I have $3, right? Does that mean like no? You like this, and that's cheaper, or that's more expensive. Like, there's no like you have this or that, and so it's tough. Where it's like, I remember I went to Best Buy once, and I think I got them. Camden had like a little pop, or Max got like a little pop dinosaur or something, and it was like $8. And then Camden got a Pokemon card, which was $5. Yeah. And so I was like, oh, here's dinosaurs, here's Pokemon cards, and then Camden looked at the receipt. He saw the receipt in the bag, and at that moment, I was like, just email me a receipt. You're not getting it in my emails, because he saw that and was like, oh shoot, like that's not fair. That's right. He got something that he likes. I guess I do like this, but there's some change here, and so he got, which is, I'm happy that he's thinking that way. But it's like, well, Dad, then that means I have $2.13.
Yeah, he's using the noodle to figure it out.
Jesus Christ! Come on now.
Right now they're into Transformers, and I'm like, well, Emily, I want to get them these Transformers. She's like, they have enough Transformers. I'm like, you don't understand.
You don't understand.
The Transformer window is a short window, and they're not going to want to play with these in a year, and I'm going to wish that they had these Transformers, because there's some really sweet ones that they have these, like, because now there isn't just one Bumblebee. Yeah. There's 35 Bumblebees, and I finally figured it out, because they all look different, and they'll make a Bumblebee airplane, a helicopter, a boat. I'm like, what is going? It's like, so I want to jump on things, but I don't want to overdo it, because I know it's fleeting. Yes. Because the dinosaur thing was like a hot minute. It was like a good 2 or 3 months where it was nothing but dinosaurs. So.
Well, and I think I've seen some at your house, the brooder trucks.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we used to go to, I remember bought one at Marshall's or TJ Maxx, one of the two. Yeah. And they were probably about 45% off what they were retail online or anywhere else. So I'm like, oh shoot. And so I was collecting these things. I don't know if it was more for me or for the kids. Yeah. But, and of course they're all destroyed in the back. I mean, they still work, but the crane. I think we have cranes, we have excavators.
Yeah.
We pretty much have our own little set back there. There's a Jeep with a trailer. There's all kinds of stuff. And Rue was like, so why are you buying these things? You keep buying, like, it's like, you don't understand. Like,
I'm getting a great deal.
I'm getting a great deal out of this, and B, like, we don't have this. Like, this is cool. And like, well, the boys don't really play with it that much. It's like, wait until I bring one. When you bring one, all of them come out.
Yeah.
And I remember I think the last one I brought was a truck. So I had a stationary crane, but there was a truck and a crane. And I brought that, and I brought it out, and then an hour later, I see them out in the backyard, and they're digging. They got their own little construction site, and I'm just sitting there, just like, this is it. This is why. And so if you're out there like, well, I shouldn't buy. My kids have too much stuff. Sure, they probably do, because no matter if you try to regulate it or not, they're going to have too much stuff.
Yeah, like if I'm going to buy something for myself or them, they're going to win out.
They're going to win out, exactly. And so on that transition, having not one but two boys, which is, if you don't have, I've been around girl dads, like, what? These guys are crazy. These guys are nuts. Like, where's all this energy? And girls have their moments too, but they're a little more calm and docile, and the rooms are straight and they're neat. And the boys are just like, let me just jump off of something, or can I throw my little brother off of this type of thing? Being a boy dad, what are some, I guess, any kind of advice you have to any boy dads or potential, they have a boy coming or whatnot? I know the Porters, they have their second boy. They have a boy and a girl. Now they're having another boy. Any kind of advice you would give to any dads about raising boys and anything that comes from your childhood, moving on, anything you learned from that, or anything raising boys in general?
So when they team up and they're on the same wavelength, it's awesome.
It's amazing.
Because they're just like, let's make this noise. Ew, ew. And they run around the house doing it. And they're like, let's draw. Yes. I'm going to draw you a bird. Awesome. I'm going to show you how to draw a bird. Yay. Yes. And they're like, it's on 10 out of 10. They're hitting all energy levels. And then like 10 minutes later, it's like, Simon's scratching my face. And, like they're bloody and whatever. I try to head that off at the pass when I see it, like the first thing happening. And to get, like, for instance, Simon's 4, to get his attention, all I have to do, and this is a great little tidbit of information, is I line something up. Because as kids, we love to line stuff up.
Exactly.
I'll start like a 5-car line.
Yes.
And then I'll leave like 6 more off scattered. I'm like, Simon, look. And he's like, huh? Dude, he's gone. Yeah. He is so into the line.
Yes.
And then he does the line, and I'm like, wait, but you didn't do it end to end? He's like, no. And then like he starts thinking about that. Yeah. And then I'm like, well, we have more cars. And he will spend 20 minutes on this line, just making a line. Now they're apart. Now like they're like, I can bring things back to stasis. Because, like Emily goes out of work once a month, out of town for work, and she's gone for 3 or 4 days. And there's moments where I just need to like control it. But it's also like, having 2 boys, I don't know, it's great to see and hear the qualities we teach in them, like, have an effect. Like, we'll teach stuff to them, and, like, last night Sammy was going to bed, and he's telling me, as he's going to sleep, all these scary things. I'm like, why are you talking about these before bed? He's like, because Mommy said if I get them out, then they won't stay in my head. And I was like, oh. Okay, that makes sense. Go ahead. Tell them to me. Yeah. And he's telling me all these twisted things, and now they're out in the air, and they're not stuck in his head anymore. And he went to sleep and didn't have nightmares.
That's good.
You know what I mean? God, because Sammy, like, so I told you this story, I think, but my little 8-year-old is very emotional, and sorry if I'm taking us off track.
No, you're fine. This is on track.
And he's very emotional, and he'll, like, when we're out of the room, he'll be like, Mommy? She's like, right here. And then, like, 5 minutes later, Dada? Right here. And if Emily goes away, then he increases it because he's worried that I'm going to leave the house for some reason. Yeah. Or even take the trash out. He's worried. So, like, he'll be like, Dada? I'm like, I'm here. Like, Dada? I'm like, Sammy, I'm here. And if he doesn't hear me, that third one hits a level where, like, the cortisone shoots him up my head.
Oh,
like, and, like, he jumps up. I'm like, Sammy, I'm right here. Calm down. But he's very cerebral. And one day he was like, how do I know I'm not in a dream right now? And I'm like, because you're not, first of all, but pinch yourself because you can't feel physical pain in a dream.
Yeah.
He's like, but you said that in the dream. I'm like,
What?
I'm like, Sammy, dude, I don't know what to tell you, buddy. We're not in a dream. You just took it to a level that I can't win.
Next Christopher Nolan over here. I'm like, goodness, the concepts. Right? Wow. Yeah, when you telling me that, I was like, man, I never even thought of anything like
dude.
Like, wow,
he's a little worrier.
Yeah, I mean, and Camden's he's the same way. He's very, very emotionally driven. Max is a brute. He's a bear. He just like runs through a wall. And Camden, he kind of surveys things more so than Max does. And the same thing, they were best friends. It's the greatest. I mean, Camden does the same thing. And I think Camden and Sam, because I remember Miss Anna, their teacher, was saying, or no, Miss Maggie, the art teacher, that Camden.
She just texted me yesterday, by the way,
great,
and sent me a picture of a falcon. That I'll show you.
Oh, nice, awesome. And that's another cool thing about that school. It's like they're so invested in the kids. But we were at Savoy. Her husband works at Savoy, and Camden was showing Max how to draw something. I don't know if it was a dinosaur or something. So just step by step, do a loop and then do a line and do this.
Yeah.
And she said, "Oh my gosh, Camden and Sammy just go around the class, teach the kids how to draw stuff." And I'm like, "That's super cool."
Yeah.
But then I was like, "But if you saw them 5 minutes earlier in the car, these two hated each other. They were at each other's throat, like hitting, like poking, hitting, and stuff like that." And and when they are in that zone of like, we love each other, we're brothers. We're brothers, and you're annoying me, and I'm going to fight you. And it's funny because Max usually gets the best out of Camden because Max is the bear, and Camden's a little more emotional, and Camden can handle his own, but when Max hits him, it's like the world ended and all this other stuff. But
was Max a COVID baby?
He wasn't, no.
What?
No, he was 2016 was when he was born. Camden's 2013, Max is 2016.
Okay. Oh, wow. It doesn't feel like there's such a big difference between our little ones because Simon was 2019. So, when he was aware of things, it was COVID.
Yeah.
And there was, like, I quit my job. Emily worked because she can work from home. So I had them, and Sammy was into building these elaborate train sets. And Simon was like 1.5. He just wanted to go in there, crawl through it, and destroy the whole thing.
Yeah, Godzilla. Yeah.
So we got a fence. We ordered a fence, and I put it in the middle of the room. And I was jumping from side to side playing with him. Every day for like a year? It just seemed like it went on forever. Yeah. But the first time they played together, oh my God. Emily was like, wait, Ted. Like we heard them talking and like actually like exchanging a toy and playing together. Oh man, we popped the champagne. Yeah. We did like the arm curl toast.
Exactly.
Dancing
together. Yeah. Play the first dance song again. Fun stuff. Yeah, there's something special about seeing the siblings play, but I think our kiddos have interactions outside of school, which has been pretty awesome. Yeah. The other day we were looking at the Owls, and we were at Old Town, and they were doing their little chugga chugga Pikachu little dance, and I'm sitting there just watching it and videotaping it. I'm like, this is so awesome. Like everything, the craziness of the world, the craziness of the day, all the stress, like it all just boils down to these kids are just so innocent and they're happy. And I think I'm doing something right, I guess, because they have this imagination that just transcends. And even though it was so hot, looking at those owls, my goodness, it was like parched, and we left all the water in the car, and we're like, oh, the car's just right there, and it felt like 2 miles away.
Yeah. It was 100 in the shade. Exactly. We were in the sun. It had to be $110 at least.
It was rough.
I mean, the kids were rough.
Saw the owls. That was cool.
Yeah. Oh, that was great. No, Sammy loved it, and afterwards didn't remember. But at the time when we were doing it, Sammy's like, "I'm pretty miserable." I'm like,
he said the exact words.
I'm like, Sammy, but I love that. I love how kids, they don't have like the societal norms going yet. Yeah. They just say what they feel.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm like, but we're seeing birds. He's like, no, not about the birds. I'm just thirsty. I'm really thirsty. And when we got back to the car, he drank his entire bottle.
Oh yeah. And the boys, when we were. Of course, they were upset that we didn't go to Jungle Jam, but when we got to the Froyo place, Olo, and they sat down, it was ice cold in there. It felt so good. It felt so good. And we're sitting there, and I remember they were watching Looney Tunes, and we grew up watching Looney Tunes, and they were just cackling the laughter. Yeah. And I sat back, and I was like, you know what? They were so upset, like, well, can we go to Urban Air? Can we go? I was like, no, Jungle Jam's kind of calm. Like the other ones are crazy. Like, no, we're just gonna get some froyo. And they were a little upset, but then they just forgot about everything and they just had the best little time. And at that moment, I realized, like, you know what? We were miserable, hot, and the boys like, hey, you want to see the owls? Not really. Like the pictures I took, like, whatever. Well, who cares? I was like, I'll put it on the TV. No, we're okay. I'm like, these are great photos. Like, what do you mean? Yeah. But they were saying, like, can we watch Looney Tunes when we got home? I was like, yeah, let's watch some Looney Tunes. And those little moments as a dad, it's like, yeah, okay, I think I'm doing something all right. I think I'm doing things okay.
When kids have that gut laugh, it's like the best sound in the world. I remember Sammy was doing it at Looney Tunes when we were getting froyo. And I asked him, like, what was your favorite at night when I was putting him to bed because I think Emily went out. I was like, what was your favorite thing about today? I thought it was going to be the birds, the froyo. I thought a number of things.
Pokemon cards? They got Pokemon cards that day?
But that was it. They were like, Sammy's like, when Camden and Max got to the toy store, like when they got there. Because, all of a sudden they were like, when they hit, it's like energy, Pokemon. They're excited. They're walking down the street singing songs. And
well, it was funny. There was not this past time, the time before we were at the Hobbies and Games.
Yeah.
And they were saying something about a first edition, whatever, I don't know. And the other kid was like trying to correct them, but then Sammy and Kim were like, we don't care. And they just kept saying the same thing over and over again. And I'm sitting there watching it, and this kid's getting so frustrated. He's like, no, look. And he like pulls out a phone, like, that's not it, that's not it. And they look, Camden and Sammy were like, Arcanine or whatever it was, or whatever.
Chanting?
Yeah. And they kept chanting it over and over again. And his kid's like, that's wrong. And they're like, we don't care. It's right to us. And I sat there and I watched it. I was like, okay, these guys will be buddies for a long time. But then I started thinking, like, well, shoot, they're going to be in high school. And, oh, man, that's...
Yeah. It's different because, like, Camden's really into sports. And I realize this now, having Sammy, who doesn't play sports at all.
Yeah.
Which was a total curveball for Emily and I. I played every sport. Emily played basketball, soccer. We're both athletes, and we have our first boy has zero interest in sports. And that's when I realized growing up, being so good at sports, it made life easier.
Yeah.
Like you didn't have to like sit on a wall and be the last picked,
Exactly.
Like I always felt bad for those for the kids who were last, but God, when we played football on Thanksgiving Day,
oh yeah.
The turkey bowl?
Turkey bowl, yeah.
Turkey bowl, like there was like 30 of us, I think.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh no one knows here if I have any skills or not. I might be the last one on the wall. Like it was a bad feeling. And I'm worried for my little Sammy because he just doesn't want to play sports at all. And I'm worried that like his friends that do play, like he refuses to play soccer at lunch.
Yeah.
And he just like ends up playing by himself 90% of the time. I'm like, what'd you do at lunch? He's like, I just play by myself. I'm like, I just gotta, it's hard because you feel their emotion.
Exactly.
You feel all of it. But sports is like an easy way to just make friends and succeed. And
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and that's something growing up and playing sports and everything. And the funny thing about the Turkey Bowl was we picked the two young kids that were wrestlers and high school football players to play the Turkey Bowl, and they gave up after the first series because they were too tired, couldn't breathe, or whatever the case was. Yeah. And man, we were beat up. We were sore.
Both quads.
Oh, it was rough, but it was fun. But it's cool because I see Camden. I remember Camden at a young age. There was a kid who was pretty autistic that was a little bit younger than Camden, and Camden had been 3 or 4, and they're playing. And the kid was like really excited, running fast, and the Camden will run fast with him. Then he sees him kind of revert back, and then Camden slowed down. And I'm sitting there watching him as a 3-year-old, and of course I didn't say, "Hey, Camden, with someone like this, you should just match their energy." He just automatically was like kind of matching this kid's energy, and I'm sitting there watching this, and then I'm like excited, smiling. Then I look at the parents of the kid, and they were from out of town, so it wasn't like, "Oh, let's do play dates." And I just see the tears in their eyes because as a parent, like you said, you feel every emotion. And most kids that are either hyper this or hyper that, a lot of kids either don't gravitate to it, or if they're playing sports and they're like, okay, you're not a sports player, fine, we'll just play our sports. And you feel all those emotions because Max, I think he just plays it just because Camden plays. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, he'd rather just like do his own little thing.
Yeah.
But with seeing that, I sat there and I watched these parents, and I was like, man, the same thoughts. Like, I hope Camden and Maxon finds things or find their own little people that they could like have be on the same wavelength, even if it's a different wave or whatever the case is. And it's scary as a parent to have those fears of, like, shoot, we want to make sure, like, I mean, Sammy's a very smart kid, very artistic, very intelligent. I mean, he probably knows more birds than I do, and I've been birding since I was a little kid. Yeah. And with that being said, it really showed, like, I felt that with Camden, because Camden was real shy at first growing up, and then he started kind of opening up, and then Max, he's really shy. Camden will just talk to anyone. He just goes out and just he's like me, but Max is kind of like his mom, very kind of shy and kind of like reverts back to things. But with that being said, do you feel that with friends that are growing up now, that with the divide of sports and non-sports, that might put a separation in some of the kids?
I think so, and I hope it doesn't. I hope that, like, you know, you can have your sports friends and you can have your friends that you do other things with, you know, your artistic things, or sit and play video games with eventually. Or I think there's room for more than just, I'm trying to think if I mean, most of my friends were sports friends, but we had a bunch of kids that didn't play sports and still hung around with us. Yeah. So hopefully both can exist. But yeah, it makes me worry because Sammy has zero interest in sports. And like, I don't know any other boy that we all know between our families and all in our classrooms that is just totally not into sports.
Yeah. And I remember having a couple friends that were very just, they kind of did their own thing. They were either in comics or whatnot. And then, of course, when you get older, your body gets a little more athletic. You might not be skilled wise, but you could throw a ball, or you could shoot a hoop, or whatever the case is. You could do things that like, okay, I could do that. I have more ability to do some of these things. Maybe I might not be a star, but I have more ability. So I think that kind of grew into it. But I'm kind of happy that Camden is still very artistic, and kind of with the Pokemon and with the
and
video
that's what
games.
Him and Sammy do. They make comics together.
They make the little comics, and so I feel that Camden has a good balance where when I see him with his sports buddies, that he's like on, like he just goes. And then when he's like with Sammy and they're just like focused, like get out of the room, we're doing our comics, or we're doing this. Yeah. You can see that he has that quick transition that's really good. But when it comes to, finally, we could talk stories all day long about fatherhood and everything like that. What are some lessons that you've learned as a dad to this point that you feel like, okay, if you're a new father or you're a continuing father or whatnot, these are some of the key points that, I would say 3 key points, and I know if I'm either putting you on the spot or if you have it written down already, but 3 key points that says, this is how fathering has affected my life, or how I can be better as a dad moving forward, or anything like that.
Well, you told me that you're going to ask me for any dad lessons or advice, so I wrote some down, and I can go through them pretty quickly. But sugar is so insane with kids. We'll be at a birthday party, everything's great, and then the cake comes out. They eat the cake, and they're like, they're like the zombies from World War Z. They'll get together and climb on each other to get over a fence. They're just like, and then they crash so hard, and they get so angry, and it's like, oh my God, man, we gotta chill on the sugar. And we say that every time in the next birthday party. We can't stop it. But it really does mess them up. Yeah. Let them space out. Sometimes Simon will be in a space out, and when kids space out, they look sad, kind of. They're just like, you're like, hey, what's going on? And then I realized, like, wait, he's just spacing out. That's key to, like, because they take time to daydream and space out. And I'm not gonna mess that up. Also, sometimes I think that parents overdress when they have a baby. When they have a baby, they think this thing, like, they think it's the tundra outside, and they need to put 6 layers on. Mm-hmm. And Sammy used to start crying, and people be like, I don't know what's wrong with him. I'm like, well, first I'm taking off all these. I'm freeing up his feet because he's hot. Yeah. He's hot. Look at him. He's like, also, like, let it be messy and fun. Like, trust me, you're gonna throw that couch and those rugs out. Yeah. It's just not gonna be neat. I mean, You know, like when we were first having you guys over, we were like, we kept putting it off. We kept putting off having people over. And then we're like, you know what? Their parents do. Screw it.
Yeah.
Just come over. You're going to see. It's just a mess. Like, no matter if we clean it an hour ago, it's going to start being a mess again. And yes, the dining room chairs have crap all over them because they've spilled so many times. But if we tried to be anal about it, I think it'd be so much less fun.
Yeah.
And just let them get messy. We water our property every 2 weeks. We flood it.
Yeah.
And we let them walk back there and get, covered in mud. They are like in mud from head to toe, and they are the happiest ever. And then I got to get them, or Emily, we have to get them into the house, through the house, into the bathtub without just making a total mud
mess,
streak.
Yeah.
And then also, if they're being jerks or if they're being little a-holes, for lack of a better term, they can't usually tell you why. Like, that's when, instead of reacting, like, you need to think back. Like, oh, we just had this happen today. We just had it happen last night. Like, and Sammy's mad about something. He's been mad since yesterday afternoon. He's mad, and he's teasing Simon, I'm like, Sammy, what's going on?
Yeah.
He's like, nothing. Like, wants to push me away. And, like, I'm like, what changed yesterday? I'm like, oh, at camp, they switched his schedule. So the first 8 classes he knew at camp, that's done. Now he started new ones. So all the friends he made in that first 2 weeks at camp, gone.
Yeah.
And he doesn't want to go to camp again. And that's where it came out, this frustrating that he didn't know he was feeling.
Yeah.
You know, that we need to, like, kind of, like, look back, like, oh, he's being a brat, but why is he being a brat? Like,
Exactly.
Think back, like, 10 minutes. What just happened? Like, is Simon playing with Sammy's toy now, and that's making him mad because we told him he has it and he can play with it now? Like, instead of reacting, think about it a little bit. I guess that's it.
Okay. Well, those are all solid points. I mean, you look at, they're humans, and they can't express things as we can express. I mean, we get frustrated with our spouses sometimes, like, just say it, say what's going on.
Yeah.
And but then that's an adult who their cognitive capacity is a whole lot larger than a little guy or little gal. And so I've gone to the point where Camden, he shuts down. Max will tell you how he feels in his own little way, and I'm just like, just say it, buddy. Just like, and then I start getting frustrated. Then I realize if I get frustrated, that's not going to help anything at all.
No, and dude, we're not perfect. I get frustrated. But then, like today, like Sammy was like screaming. He was, if I got near him, he'd try to kick me. You know, he's on the couch. Finally, I put my hand on his shoulder or his knee. I'm like, calm down.
Yeah.
In his words, what I did was I picked him up, threw him on the couch, and scratched him, he said, and yelled at him. I'm like, Sammy, I did not do that. Please don't tell people that.
And then Emily come running.
Please don't tell.
Yeah. Well, the same thing, it's funny with Camden. I was like, come on, buddy, let's go. You're not listening. And I will get his arm, and I'll pull him. And he like I just threw him across the room. Like,
he's a born soccer player.
Yeah,
he's a flopper.
Flopper everywhere. And then, of course, all Ruby sees is the boy flying.
Right.
And I'm sitting there like, I'm like not trying to laugh, like, you little sack of shit. Like, you know, and I'm sitting there, Ruby, calm down. Like, it's like, what did you do? And she's sitting there, and I look at it, and he's just like looking at me like, yeah. I'm like, it's like, oh, man. And so then it finally happened where she had him, like, let's go. And he flung himself, I'm like, see, ha, boom, busted. You're busted. And he looked, he was like, damn, I like my cover's blown. Like, see, I told you, this is what's going on. But
also one other piece of advice before, if you're thinking about wrapping up, because people think it has to be 50-50 with your spouse all the time, and that's just so unrealistic. Like, there's going to be days where you do 80%, and let's be honest, she probably does more than us most of the time. Yeah. But, like, we'll have that one day where we do a ton, and we're like, no, this is my time now. I just did like 60% of this day. And, like, you know, I don't know. It's just so easy to get in arguments with the kids and everything, and we just have to step back and, like, take a breath sometimes.
Yeah.
But we're not perfect. We definitely get in arguments every now and then, but I can see that if we were younger, maybe, like, we waited till we were older.
Yeah.
If we were younger and more immature, like in our 20s with kids, I can see why the divorce rate's so high.
Exactly.
With people with kids in their 20s.
Well, I brought it up last episode. The two most important things, probably going to be a very repetitive thing as we go along. to tell your kids is, hey, I love you and I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Because there was when we were longboarding and Max had the little GoPro and on his bike and he was saying something and all I was internalizing was, Dad, the GoPro's not on because the screen standby is to save battery life. So I was like, as long as the light's flashing, we're good. And I look back, it's flashing. Max says, don't touch it, leave it alone. Leave it alone. Like, just, it's fine, Max. And I just kept saying that over and over again until I played the tape back. And who is the biggest piece of shit in the world? Me. Because he was saying, Dad, this is such a great day. I'm having so much fun. And he just kept saying that over and over again. I'm saying, no, Max, you're fine. Like, the GoPro's on. Like, leave it on. And I'm sitting there like, oh, my God.
Isn't that the worst feeling?
Like, I sat there, and I was so mad at myself, so upset. And then I say, Max, I'm sorry. And this was like 2 days later or 3 days later. I'm sorry that I was yelling at you when we were on the longboard. And he completely forgot about it. I was like, what do you mean? I was like, so I played it back. And I'm sitting there listening. I'm like crying. He puts his little arm around me. He said, it's okay, Daddy. Thank you for apologizing. And he just ran off and just did his thing. Like, it was like, oh, cool, thank you. Yeah. And I sat there at that moment and realized, like, you know what? Yeah, like you said, we're not perfect. We're not perfect at all. And there's times where we overstep our bounds or we overstep our authority or we're like, well, we are the authority. Well, you need this because I said so. What? But there's nothing more important than telling your kid I'm sorry and then having them recognize that.
Absolutely. Never go to bed angry.
Yeah.
And that was a rule that Emily and I had before kids. Like, if we rarely argue.
Yeah.
But if we do argue, never go to bed angry.
Exactly.
That is the worst.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the last thing, I don't know if you wrote one down or have one on the top of your head. Every dad has to give a dad joke. So the floor is yours.
You ready for it? How do you track Will Smith in the snow?
I don't know where to set it, but how?
Follow the Fresh Prince.
Philly joke too.
Yeah,
I like it. I like it.
Full circle.
Oh, I was like, "Where is this going? Where is this going?"
No, I kept it clean.
Of course, we both do a dad joke. Mine, I just found out. I just saw the other day. Why did the gambler buy a cattle farm?
Why?
He wanted to raise the stakes.
Oh, there you go. Not bad.
Well, thank you guys so very much. Thank you, Ted.
Of course, anytime.
Coming. I know we had technical difficulties last week, but we got to figure it out. Hopefully, we'll play back and make sure. I bet you it's fine. But How to Father, again, this is just a podcast that just dads just talk about our dad experience and really trying to be a resource, either in a small or big way, to dads, future dads, or dads in general. So we're going to have more episodes. Hopefully get this weekly. I have a couple other dads lined up. Hopefully we'll get Ted back on.
I'll come back whenever you want to shoot the shit. I love it.
We will just, we have, I know, a lot of stories coming up. I even have an episode with me and the boys.
Nice.
Which I'm excited for. I'm going to ask the very tough question of how can I be a better dad to you? So I'm going to have the tissue. I'm already welling up thinking about it, but hopefully just buy me more Pokemon cards, but and fun stuff like that. So thank you guys for tuning in. How to Father podcast. We're going to continue to do these, and once again, thank you, Ted, for being a part of it.
Thanks, buddy. No problem.
Talk to you guys soon. See you next time.
Yep.
Dream where you are now.